Hi guys and welcome. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at the MK2 Carcoon Workstation. Now a lot of you guys that follow the channel have seen us doing a lot of work in our Carcoon medium workstation. Now I have to say, so far I've not been able to fault the first series of the Carcoon Workstation. This second generation one, if you will, I have to say I am even more impressed with. It's got the feature that the actual booth can stay running and up and inflated all the time without the need of that inflation fan running all the time. Now the main added bonus to that is, say if by any chance you get the 1 in a million chance that you're in the booth spraying at the time of a power cut, this booth will not come down on you. Now it does take a tiny little bit longer to inflate, but does inflate in pretty much the same way as the Mark 1 booth. Now the main difference between the two is the first booth had stitch seams and relied on airflow being constantly pumped into the tubes to be able to keep the booth inflated. Now this new Mark 2 booth has welded seams all the way around, a bit like a rubber dinghy. Now the bonus there is, once this is inflated you can lock a one-way valve off, and then once that one-way valve's locked off, this booth can stay inflated for a day, an hour, a week, a month, for as long as you want really. And all you may have to do is every now and again just top up the air in the tubes a tiny little bit, but you've still got the added bonus, like the first booth, that this can be put up and taken down whenever you see fit. So it still has the usability and the space saving aspects of the first booth, but with having the welded seam system and the one-way valve lock off, it does mean that you can use this like a proper booth. And by no means am I trying to say that you couldn't use the first one like a proper booth, but this really does give you more of a feel of a static booth, especially in a shop like ours. If you've got a few resprays or something, you can do a respray in this and leave it overnight and be happy that the next day this booth's still standing and that everything's still fine. Now it has got all the same great features as the first booth. You've got the little flaps at the back which zip open and close to let your airlines in, which is really handy on something like this. You've still got the airlock at the back, so the airflow for the actual extraction side still comes into here the same as the first booth did, which gives you a really good pressure in the cabin, which does force that overspray out really nicely. And obviously you've got those two huge intake filters at the back that forced air is being forced through. So you're still getting all the same sort of features as the first booth, but with a few little upgrades. And the biggest one here is the welded seams. As you can see, all the seams on the previous booth that would have had the stitches running around them, they all now are welded seams, so there's no air loss in those tubes. So at this point you can lock this booth off, have no fans running, and the booth will stay up for as long as you need it to. Obviously, as in the first booth, we've still got the 3-stage extraction filter system, which we've been asked a lot about. How does it extract and how does it the airflow and everything work? And basically the airflow gets pumped into that airlock at the back, fills the chamber and pressurizes the cabin, and then pushes it out through those extraction filters. And as you can see here from the specs on this, it exceeds the requirements of 98% capture efficiency, which is really good for something that is marketed as a mobile smart repair booth. This booth, if you're a body shop, really is an ideal second booth, or if you're like ourselves, maybe you've not got the space for a static booth, is an ideal first booth as well. Now I have put the lights in myself. These are LED floodlights, and they've all been fitted to the tubes via Velcro and then all put on. Now on the Velcro aspect of this booth, everything on this booth is detachable. The windows are detachable, the floor is detachable, the roof, absolutely everything can be pulled off and changed. Another one of the little upgrades is they have put a lot stronger tie downs. So if you are using this outside, these tie downs are 10 times stronger than the previous ones. The windows and everything, the same as the last booth, are all Velcro fit, and any of these can be bought and changed if you need to. And it also makes the booth really easy to maintain. You can literally pull everything off it, give it a clean down, give it a blowout, Velcro everything back onto it, and you're good to go again. Now, round the back here, as you can see, this big red fan, this is the original fan that we used on our previous booth, and that is putting the airflow into this back cabin. Now, that back airlock section pressurizes, and it's the airflow that goes through from there that then forces your overspray out when the front door is closed. The actual tube fan on this is a lot smaller, but I have to say it is a very powerful little fan. It takes roughly around about, I'd say probably 3 to 4 minutes to inflate the whole booth. You plug it on to this little black connector here, and inside that connector is your one-way lock-off valve. Now, nothing will leak out of that valve unless you plug the pipe on, which has got a little bit in which will depress this end here, or if you actually depress that itself. Now, if you don't depress that and you just lock that off, this booth will stay up, and I have to say, I think now I've had this booth up now for about 3 to 4 weeks, and it hasn't lost any pressure or started coming down at all. Now, for you guys that may not have seen any of our work in the previous booth, I thought I'd do a little bit of wet on wet work on this van and show you just how well this booth performs, just so you guys can get an idea for how it extracts the overspray and the clearance and everything else for it. Now, one thing that I will give this booth is the clearance times on it, and also the airflow and everything is a lot better than you would think. That red fan at the back is a very high flow fan. It's got a serious amount of cubic feet a minute of airflow, which forces through this booth and straight out of your extraction filters, and gives you a really nice clean working environment. I did a scooter for a friend of mine for his brother a few weeks back. You're talking around about, I'd say probably 10 to 12 panels, and you were looking around about 2 to 3 little dirt nibs in those 10 panels, which I have to say I was absolutely gobsmacked at. And because of the general overall build of this booth, it is actually a lot stronger, because those tubes around the outsides do hold a lot of pressure. It does actually make the main frame of this a lot sturdier than in the original booths. Now, that's not to say that the original booth wasn't good. It was an amazing design, it was a brilliant bit of kit, but I have to say the guys at Carcoon with this booth have gone that one little step higher and improved that design to a whole new level. Now, one of my biggest questions about this booth is how do you keep it clean? And the only thing I can say to that is it comes down to good housekeeping. At the end of the day, you spend a lot of time prepping your cars, prepping your panels and prepping your paintwork. You need to do the same really with your booth. Now, we don't really spend a lot of time actually keeping this booth clean. It's pretty easy to keep clean. I'd say there's no more work involved in this than there is in a standard booth. Now, for a dirty job like this where we're putting a lot of primer down, I really don't want to make a mess of the floor, so we have put some poly sheet over the floor, and all we've done is just rolled one piece straight out and put a piece of poly roll over the floor. Now, if your floor does get a lot of overspray stuck to it that won't just sweep off, the brilliant thing with one of these is you can literally just peel it up from the corner off the Velcro, take it straight outside, pressure wash it off, dry it off, bring it in and stick it straight back down within a matter of about half an hour. It doesn't really take that much work, and it does mean that, say, as opposed to a proper spray booth, you're not going to have to repaint the floor to get rid of all that overspray and mess. You can literally just tear that big white panel off the floor outside, pressure wash it off, let it dry off in the sun for 10 minutes and then put it straight back in and be in there spraying with a nice clean floor again. Now, in general, the rest of the booth, there's not really a lot we do to it. When I've done a big job like this, I give it a brush out. If it's a little job, I don't even bother brushing it out. We do give it a blowout with the airline every now and again, just to make sure that there's nothing stuck to the tubes that are above my head. And bar that, honestly, there's not really much that you need to do to one of these booths to keep it clean. Now, you can see there, I've got the Top Gun masking film down, and just as a little bit of a demo to show just how good these booths are, I had this little bike panel laying around in the workshop that I hadn't had quite had enough time to paint. Now, one thing you can do is at the back of the booth here, if I wanted to do a little job like this, there's going to be no problem with the overspray off this little job going on the prime body that I've done in front of it. because even though this is a smart repair booth, it is a mobile workstation. It really does have a really good extraction that, to be quite honest, I was quite amazed with the first time I used one, and now we're on to this Mark II booth. I'm even more impressed with these booths than I was the first time I went down to see the guys at Carcoon. This Mark II model is exceptional really. Now I did actually base coat and clear coat this behind this Land Rover, and I did take a tack rag at one point and wipe it over the side of the Land Rover to see if any of this red overspray had landed on the prime surface of the Land Rover, and nothing had transferred over to it. Because I'm spraying right at the back of the booth, this is where the airflow hits the point where it starts to push it out the filters. Nothing's going to start travelling forward onto that Land Rover. It's in fact going to get pushed straight out the sides where I am, straight through those big 3-stage filter system. Another thing you can get from this video is also the size of this spray booth. Now it is an 8x4 metre spray booth, so that Land Rover is not exactly the smallest vehicle in the world, and it's not exactly the biggest, but at the same time I've got more than enough room here to get another panel in behind this Land Rover and spray it. Now if I was getting around to doing the base coat stage on Land Rover, I could quite happily put a stand behind this Land Rover and put, say, the doors or the bonnet or something like that on there, just the same as I would in your average size spray booth. Now at this stage I am putting the clear coat down on this bike panel, and as you can see there's not really a lot of overspray that's lingering around. Because of where I am situated in the booth, I am at the final part where basically the airflow is travelling towards this end, and it's going to get, all that airflow is going to be pushing this overspray back away from this Land Rover and straight through the filter system. So there is no worry that any of this is going to travel forward onto the Land Rover in front of it. Now for some of you guys watching, I understand this might be your first time seeing one of these booths or watching a review on one. So if you want to see a little bit more information or a little bit more spraying in one, do check out some of our other videos, or check out the review that we did on the original Carcoon workstation that we got, and I'll leave a link in the description at the end. As always, if you guys have got any questions about this booth, maybe questions about the jobs, or any suggestions on videos that you want to see in the future, I know we have had a short little bit of a break, but I've had some things to be dealing with outside of work, which has meant I've had a little bit less time to get into the actual editing side of things. But I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.